conversation between you and your father. So I think that's another powerful reason why we need to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I really resonate with the reflection piece. The
Yeah.
reflection is a big one, and helping us to reflect and also to have gratitude.
Yes.
Gratitude for what we got from our father. Our fathers did
Yes.
give us something, and
100%.
then grief for what wasn't given, what we didn't receive. And also to be able to talk about, for some people, maybe their father is still alive, they can have this conversation, just like you shared. For some people, like me, their father is no more here. I'm wondering,
Yeah.
what do I how
Mm-hmm.
do I get those messages? How can I still catch up? How can I get these
Mm-hmm.
lessons that I need to learn? What can I do in these moments? What do I do now after talking about this to make sure that I am whole? I have everything I need to be a man, a father, just a full person that I need to be in the community today. So those are the conversations we're going to be having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find with the name of the topic, it just sounds loaded. Like we're just like,
Yeah.
where do we even begin?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
we've covered is that there are some that have had father-like figures. There's or just the absence of father
Yeah.
and what that plays in their everyday life, and just kind of how to navigate through that. Uh, my I think those are where some of my thoughts kind of go to when I hear this. It's like, well, if you were never told, you didn't know, and if there wasn't there, then
Yeah.
who was supposed to tell you? So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
there's a lot of searching or to kind of find those answers, whether it is a young boy to manhood, or I know we're talking about men, but like it goes both ways. It's like what am I missing
Mm-hmm.
that from the father figure that you need to instill. So a lot of
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
pieces here.
Like that.
Yes. So powerful because what I'm hearing is that there is the father wounds. So when you have the absence of a father, you feel it, right? And we see that come up as well, even in the therapy room, like that absence of a father. So why don't we talk about the role of a father and the importance of that role, and then boys, you just take it from there. Go ahead.
Oh. The role of a father is a big one. A big one. It's as you talk, it just brings tears to my eyes. It's so
Mm,
massive because it shapes a child from a young age.
mhm,
Just the presence of a father, being
Yeah.
there, being present. There's this confidence it gives a little child, like you can take on the world. That's my
Yeah.
father. I
mhm.
remember growing
Yeah.
up, I went to boarding school, and during
Yes.
visiting days when my dad would come, I just wanted to, like, he's my hero. Let my friends say that's my dad. Yeah, not
Mhm,
he's just the best. So the role of a father goes a long way to help shape a child's self-esteem, self-confidence, ability. There was some research that was done that said about elephants. So when elephants, a
mhm,
mother elephant or father elephant is present and
Mm-hmm.
lets the baby looking back, seeing the parents, can go and play. But if the parent is not there, not seen, that child is scared, needs to run and find the parent.
Mm.
Be attached to the parent. Just the fact that I can see the parent standing there, I am free to play. I know if anything happens,
Oh,
my parents will come get me.
other.
So
Charity.
a father being present gives a child freedom that they don't need to worry. I got someone watching my back. I can go play. I can interact with the world. I could test things out. I could explore. I could take leaps. And just not having that father or father figure or people who stand in that gap, it makes
mm,
children more anxious, not really stable. It affects their attachment style. So a father plays a huge role, even
Yes.
without speaking, a big,
Yes.
big role in the life of a child. And even as adults, we still need that figure to consult with. Maybe the relationship changes, but just to have a conversation in a starting to carry on legacy. So many things that a father does in the life of a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the part of kind of already mentioned kind of that word impart, but it reminds me of kind of sharing wisdom. I think of like I'll share this with kind of inner child work or things I do with my clients, but
even just kind of faith processing, but this idea like when we're younger, like, oh, my dad is Superman, like he
Yeah.
knows everything, can do everything, and you look to that father to impart these skills or wisdom or lessons into. And I think that's a beautiful picture of what a father can do, is to teach, to guide, to give wisdom when the child doesn't know and they're exploring, right? To be able to go to the father and be like, hey, like, I'm not sure how to do this, or can you show me how to do this? And to have that bonding time where you get to do that with your father, you get to learn something, you get to grow. It gives this sense of, as you said, like this secure attachment, that there's always this place to go when you're stuck or when you're confused or when you're curious. A father can be there in that. I think that's so powerful and makes the child feel like, hey, not only am I protected, but I also have someone to go through life with. Like I'm not alone, right? I'm not I don't have to figure this out on my own. And
Yes.
so when a father isn't there, what I've seen is actually, you hear like a lot of people, they'll talk about like, oh, I've had to grow up too early. There's always been this feeling of loneliness where I had to figure out things on my own, and it created this sense of anxiety and stress. And I just feel like I now have to hold the world together, and they get overloaded when they get to the point of being an adult. It's like, this is the pattern I've been in. I've had to search out and hold like everything on my own and be strong enough on my own. And so there you see that deficit of when the father isn't there to impart and share skills and wisdom.
Mhm.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
I think the part resonated with me with let's say father being Superman, because I'll share a short story. My
Mm-hmm.
parents are Antiguan. I remember swimming.
Hey, Antigua, big up yourself.
uh, I remember going swimming in the ocean, and I remember my dad swimming with me, and then he told me to hold on to his back, and I was like, "What's this man talking about?" He swam with me out to the buoy that was out in the ocean. I was like, "Who is this? Is he Aquaman?" Like, I didn't know. See, but then this is where I was talking about, like, he never told me. How do I know that you're a fish like this? I don't know. And then it kind of opened me up to this whole world of, you were a whole person before, like before you were a father. And
Yeah.
I think that as I've grown up, I start to learn that, how he grew up, or what are, like, obviously
Mm.
you instill things, whether they were good or whether they were bad, but you start to shape them, like, all right, well, how did this craft you into the person that you are? And then how do I apply that to myself? So I use that anecdote to be like, yes, you pedestalize, but then at the same time, it there's a humbling effect to say, well, how did you get to this point? And you kind of go through your own analysis. And I think that's been the fun part now, like in my older age,
Yeah.
is kind of seeing that. I'm like, you were a whole person. Like, you were not just the label of
That.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You really, give your father grace, and as you grow into man, you start to understand your father more to a certain degree, right? I think of, being a father as a shield, understanding the duality of knowing when and how to act and when to pull back. Like my dad, Gavin knows, he's a funny guy. He can be very soft. At the same time, he's like a fifth degree black belt, and he was known for kicking butt back in the day. So he's a powerful man, but one of the most
Yeah.
biggest gentle giants you'll ever meet. So you understand that dynamic of, that softness comes from men as well as that power. And you pick up on that as you get older, right? You pick up on that. You're like, okay, wow, I understand. It's not all about anger and fighting and punching, but it's about finding that peace and that stillness and expressing that love as well. So,
Did
yeah.
he impart some of that black belt wisdom to you?
Oh yeah, listen, I did that growing up, but my brother and I were wild. So we.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, I have his softer side.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I would say, like, just a little tidbit, like, story of me. Like, I feel like on both ends of the spectrum in terms of dad present, dad not present, that type of feeling, and going through the whole forgiveness phase, and maybe the whole like, I really hate this guy, I don't know why this guy did all these things, and then going through the softer phase of just like, okay, building that relationship. And like we mentioned before, just understanding as you get older some of the pressures that he might have been feeling and the things that he might have been going through. And so just seeing it from both ends of that spectrum really shows you how important it is to have a father in someone's life, to some of the things that you have to kind of figure out on your own, or that identity piece or the affirmation piece. Some of those things where you kind of have to navigate those things without having a father figure is difficult. And having a great relationship with my father now, if you asked me 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that would ever be the case. But I do think that there is hope in those situations where it's like, if you're not having the actual father, like having a father figure, someone to speak life into you, or just kind of show you certain things, is so important. And there's a bunch of studies that show the success rates and factors of having that father figure, especially for men, how important that is, and how that can really change the trajectory of their lives.
You even hear the like, not only in terms of like young boys with their fathers and how that shapes them, but there's also that kind of what is it called, a trope or a thing of like even like a daddy's girl, right? And talking to a lot of my female clients or female friends, and just the importance of the role of dad to them, right, as protector, as someone they can go to have this special bond. And so I just think the role of the father is great, and it expands not only to just kind of a young man, but also their daughters as well. I just think that's powerful.
Yeah, I heard a girl recently say, we were chatting about family, and she's like, my dad is my best friend. He led the home. She's like, he left me with the blueprint of who I want my husband to be. And I think, both men, women, fathers, and mothers lead like that. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
You know how weird that is? You know how Freudian that, like, my girlfriend, same thing. Dad is, and like there's so many things that I do that her dad, like we're bald, we like to golf, there's like so many of these things. And
for a reason.
He had clothes that I ended up like taking from him. He's like, oh, take these from my closet, whatever. So I'm like wearing his sweater, and I send her a picture. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, this reminds me. But there's this thing where she's very close to her dad, and she appreciates those values, and so of course she's gonna seek those out in a partner, and and I think that's special. But
very powerful.
What about the sense of adventure? I mean, I know even for like my own kids, there's I want to protect them and cushion them just like I did in the womb, and then dads are just like, woo, yeah. But there's just this sense of adventure. Can you guys talk about that a little?
Yeah, and I think kids need both. They need that sense of safety from mom, and they need that sense of adventure from dad. The research I did was actually saying maybe around age 2, especially if you have multiple kids. The first kid is turning 2, the second kid is maybe a baby, and take that 2-year-old away from the mom so the mom can have time with the baby and actually explore, do rough, and that is exciting for the 2-year-old and actually helps with their development. So yes, that sense of adventure, living like you can do anything, you can throw them off, take them on bike ride, roll down the hill. That really helps children develop immensely. That sense of adventure is really good and really important. And fathers are wired for that. Fathers love that's the role they play.
They do.
It's amazing too, because like even in that adventure, how dangerous that can be. The child is completely trusting and feels safe in the midst of that. Like you wouldn't ever think that a child is in danger, even when they are throwing them up or doing some like crazy adventurous thing. But it's like in that moment they feel that safety, and that's such a good thing for their development moving forward as well.
Kind of reminds me of the concept of the book John Eldridge wrote in terms of like Wild at Heart, and I think it talks about this kind of wildness that men can have in a positive way. Oh, do you have it right there? That's hilarious.
Oh, you can't see it clearly, but yeah.
This man has it right there.
Beautiful
That's
book.
funny. But yeah, this wild at heart, in this sense of men, kind of being able to have that risky and kind of get into that wrestling and danger side, and for a dad that's able to encourage them in that, right? And I think that's kind of special, and it allows the child, as with the elephants, right? That's, we call that secure base for exploration, right? As you
Mhm.
have the parent there, that's the
Mm,
security and protection for you. You can explore those different things without being anxious, or, oh, I don't want to try this, or I don't want to take this risk. But if dad is there and they're helping you explore this adventure wild side, and you feel safe and protected by him in it, and with the nurturing side of mom as well, I think that's super powerful. Yeah.
yeah. You see, I saw a video not too long ago where they were helping their son. They were playing on a chair. The son fell off, and the mom's like going to grab him, and the dad's like, no, he can get up. And it's kind
Mhm.
of like that example of like, and then after he got up, he started laughing. He cried, then he laughed as he got up, and he's like, you want to go again? Let's go. You kind of see that nurturing and that adventurous side, right? So, uh,
Mhm.
And meanwhile, I'm sitting there, I'm like, again?
You get the videos of like, a dad at a party being like recorded throwing their child like,
yes.
however many feet in the air, and the
Mhm.
mom's just sitting there on camera like, what are you doing with my
What is-
child?
Mhm.
And it's like, right.
Right.
But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
They're only gonna get a few bruises, but they're gonna learn life lessons and really feel
Yeah.
excited. So,
Yes.
mm.
It's true.
As
And
we
like,
talk about, go
go ahead.
ahead.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
Yeah. As we talk about just fathers and talk about what my father told me, what I learned from my father, there are a lot of people who this brings up mixed feelings for me because they don't
Yes.
have access to their father, they don't have relationship with their father, or maybe they had the father that they're not proud of, and
mm,
just the thought of father brings up mixed message. Some people maybe they got abused by their own father,
mm,
and this can be really something that can be
Mm.
traumatic to a lot of
yes.
people. Um, and but there are ways we can see those situations differently. What we always have power over is our narrative. The narrative we can
Mm,
pick from these experiences and how we can
Mm.
turn them around. I know for me personally, I at a point I had an amazing father. I had an amazing father, amazing, was present, did everything. But still, there was this narrative that of just disappointment when I grew older.
Mm.
And I think that happened because when I was younger, yeah, my father was rich. We had brand new cars. I had soldiers driving me to school. My dad would pick me up. I lived the life. I enjoyed, but what does a kid need? Just candy and everything. Kid is happy.
yeah.
My dad was a community
Mm.
person. He invested a lot in the community, sponsored
Mm,
people to school, neighbors, family, everybody. So I saw him spending money. I thought, oh, we're rich. The money's always going to be there. But when I grew older and ready to spend this money, the money was gone. And I had nothing to spend. All these people I saw my dad invest in, it's like they took all the money. And when I need to spend the money, I need to drive the car. No more cars. And then suddenly I'm
mm,
like,
Mm.
wow.
and I felt duped. I was like, why? Why don't I have anything? Why am I poor? But it took a lot of work
Mm.
for me to realize, no, yes, he gave all this money to these people, but he actually gave me the lessons. He gave me his presence. He gave me a
Mm,
lot of life. When I
Mm.
had to dig deep to find what he deposited in me, and I realized I had the power to recreate that life. I can create
yes.
the money. I have the main deal. Until that helped me to see things differently and I stopped being pissed or angry. Like, no, no, yes, he gave them money, but he gave me the ability to make the money and make everything. And
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's part of his community work and his generosity that helped me to become a therapist because I realized I have that passion
Mm.
for people. So that legacy, he passed that on to me.
Yes.
And so that narrative, we can always pick something from the life we have from our father. We can pick whatever we get and turn it into something
Yes.
positive. But that doesn't happen on its own. If your dad is not here, he's gone. There are mentors we can get. There are therapists. There are coaches. There are people in the community who have the values you wish to see in your dad. There are
Yes.
people who have qualities you want to learn, and you can connect with them, and they can fill those roles. I remember I would reach out to people on the TV. I saw a man on the TV I loved. I liked him. I sent him an email, or
That's
And
amazing.
I tell people I steal people's dads. I steal that I like. I don't care if it's a book I read. I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna stay, and I'm gonna be buddy with him. And I had lots of mentors that I was
Mhm.
very close to like that. I
I
would
love
ride
that.
in luxury cars with these people, and I'm not their family. But I just found a way to connect to them, and they mentored me. They taught me, and that really. So there are ways we can still get these lessons. There are ways we can turn things out for a positive, and we just don't want to give up and say, "Oh, I had a terrible
Mhm.
dad and all that."
Yeah.
And we don't want to give up hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gavin, you were gonna. Um,
Well, I guess I was kind of stemming off of the same thing. It's like, not everyone has the best of experience, or I can say that I grew up with my father, but then there were periods of time where, a man's got to work. And then like the parenting is the father part is kind of separated because like, well, your father's got to work. And then, I didn't see that for a while. I'm like, well, he's the guy that's out at 6 a.m. and then comes back, he sits in front of the TV, has dinner, and then he goes off to bed. It's like a shadow in the wind.
Yeah.
And it didn't really. Again, it's till later in life you start to see what that was. I'm like, well, it's not that he didn't want to, let's say, play with you when you were younger or all that. I'm like, there's a weight, there's a responsibility, but
Yeah.
as a child, you don't see any of those things. So I guess I'm using that moment as of absence to see like how does that affect you as you develop, because it's not always because you had a father present that they're not present, or if you had the absence of a father, um that like I want to say it could correlate the same way. It can end up in the same path. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I say I reconnected with my dad later, but it's like I started to see the value in the work that he was doing. It wasn't just providing a roof over the head. There was that sense of stability, and at the same time, like, you had to put things aside. And I guess that kind of spoke to me about you didn't tell me that. Like, you,
Yeah.
you gotta pick that up and, like, well, what is it that you're putting aside of your own self to either provide for a family, or support someone else, or
mhm.
support your, yeah, or yourself. So it
Yeah.
kind of in using those examples, and then just the same way we were talking about the references out there, whether it's a television dad and you're like, I like that guy.
Yeah.
I like the way he plays with his kids, and his
Mhm.
present, he's funny, and those are some of the examples that we look at. So
Mhm.
I guess I was looking at the absence and what that brings up, and then after the ideological father figure, and how that kind of compares. And that's kind of what was stirring around in my head.
No, that's powerful, man, because we don't see it in that moment in life, and it's
Mm,
impacting us in a way. But as we're older now, we understand and we give our dads grace where it's like, you're present, but you're not present. You're not present the way I want you to be. But now, as men, we're like, he must have been saying, okay, am I good enough? I have to take care of my family. I have to take care of my kids in the grind. And we know what it is to be in the grind. We talk about it all the time. So I know the topic is, some of the things we didn't talk about, but I think we've taken a moment to even reflect even deeper,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think what I'm kind of hearing is holding out the space for those redeemable things, even if we missed some things. Finding those kind of redeemable things that maybe we didn't think about as children, or when we were kind of processing the hurt of like, oh, my dad wasn't there, but kind of like those redeemable things of like, here's the way he did show up, and here's the things he was probably processing that I didn't know before, and so you're really stepping into that grace and redeeming those experiences. But I like what Shanique says here. She said,
Yeah.
it can be difficult to navigate the gap between a father who did their best and you can give them grace. There's that grace,
Yeah.
right? But the reality, they fell short in many ways, and that has a significant impact. And I really think I've talked to a lot of people where that's their experience. And what I've learned is that sense of honoring honoring the difficult feelings that sometimes we try to be like, oh well, I'll give them grace because this
Yeah.
happens, right? Sometimes bypassing those is more hurtful to that person, but really honoring, yeah, here's the ways your dad fell short, right? Even if we have a little bit of awareness of, oh wow, these are the things he was processing at the time, but really honoring that the impact is still there, right? Whether
Yeah.
your dad meant it or not, or he just had other things going on. Honoring, hey, here's the way it really impacted me as a young person, and I carry that into adulthood, and I think that's the part of grief, of
Yeah.
honoring both sides of kind of that duality thinking of, the ways they showed up, but also the way I'm still impacted and still even
Yeah.
processing it.
Mhm.
I think of, a little thing from my story of like, I was adopted. So I have an adoptive father, but my biological father, no information, right? Kind of in that stereotypical, you know, uh, absent father left, like,
Mm.
uh, yeah. Anyways, just wasn't around, no information. Still searching, through ancestry, DNA, and that kind of stuff. And so you hold feelings with that.
Yeah.
And then my adoptive father, great, gentle man, but obviously didn't have the deeper, softer, communicative, emotional side that I think I needed. And
Yeah.
so you're processing these different things of my biological dad, like, what are the factors there, right? Stuck in the
Mm.
stigma. Maybe his dad wasn't around, like all these kind of things. Like maybe he's out there wishing, like you never know, but
Yeah.
still holding the impact. Like, oh, that's it's rough. It's impacting me. And then over here with my adoptive dad, of like, showed up in this way, but dang, there's these ways that that I'm impacted through that, and that
Mm.
both of these experiences have, yep, I can have some redeemable qualities, but also I have to really face the way that they've impacted me. And so it's that unique kind of penduluming way of kind of, here's dealing with some of the grief, also going to some of the grace and the redeeming things, and kind of back and forth to be able to process it. But I know that people sometimes when they try to just push it down, it really does end up coming up in other ways.
Yeah.
So like Shanique, you're talking about the navigation of the both and, right? I think that's important.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay, Afrobeat Music, and Talk Radio. Tonight, we're having an important conversation about fathers, sons, inherited lessons, and the messages many men wish they had heard growing up. We're exploring how the conversations we have or don't have can shape identity, relationships, emotional well being, and the legacy we leave behind. And speaking of legacy and investing in future generations, I want to take a moment to share something that is very close to the heart of the Love Bay family. As a not for profit organization, Love Bay Radio is committed to giving back to the communities we serve. Throughout the year, we create spaces for education, mentorship, connection, and empowerment. One of the ways we do that is through our annual scholarship program, which supports students as they pursue their educational and career goals. We're excited to announce the fourth annual Voices of the Millennials Youth Summit, and Mr. Matthias will be our speaker there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Hey.
And that's going to be taking place on Saturday, July 11th. This inspiring event brings together youth, students, professionals, entrepreneurs, educators, and community leaders for a day of networking, mentorship, meaningful conversations, and opportunities for growth. As part of this year's summit, Love Bay Radio will once again be awarding scholarships to Canadian post secondary students.
Mm.
Come on. Scholarship priority areas include medical sciences, law, justice, and community leadership, skilled trades and industry development, hospitality, tourism, and service excellence, media, communications, and public relations, STEM, business, and finance. Recipients will receive a $1,000 scholarship and may also be considered for internship opportunities through Love Bay Radio. Applications are still open. The deadline to apply is June 30th at 5 o'clock, not 5:01, not 5:02, but 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time, okay? So, I'm just saying, it's not in some other time zone. It's Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So if you want more information, please go to Love Bay Events 2026 at gmail.com. That's Love Bay, LUVBAY, events 2026 at gmail.com, or call in at 437-778-3299. Because guess what? Every generation deserves access to opportunities, mentorship, and support. And when we invest in our youth, we invest in our future. All right, so I'm going to pass the ball right back to you boys because I think that this topic is really, really deep. And I know that,
Yes.
even leading up to tonight, there was so much interest that was piqued in tonight's episode because I think that, this is such an important topic that we don't speak about enough. And Josh, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that, thank
Yes.
you, panel,
Thank
for
you.
sharing your stories tonight. Like, I've been like, just taking in all the stories about your fathers or the experiences that you've had with your fathers. And I know that this resonates across the diaspora. So big up yourselves one by one. And I made a mistake earlier. Sorry, tonight, Andrew, you are Andrew number one because Andrew,
Just
Mr.
one
Andrew,
tonight.
just one
Yes,
tonight
yeah.
because Andrew Kirkin is all the way in Barbados and I'm jealous.
Barbados.
Barbados, big up yourself. You have one of our own. And he's there eating cuckoo and flying fish and mommy. All right. So
Oh,
one love, one love.
oh man.
We had a question about shadow fathering and
Yes.
how to bridge the gap within this, if this
Yes.
experience. And that's something that as I read that question, just reminded one of my mentors who, like I said, I had to steal people's fathers, live with multiple people in different parts of the country just to learn and get that mentorship. And one of those people, I experienced shadow fathering. And what I would recommend is not coming at them and saying, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how you're not fathering well. That wouldn't get anywhere. Some of the things we could do is maybe trying to understand them, understand. Maybe they're carrying the huge responsibility of the providing, and that is draining them. And in this mentor, that was the experience. They are providing so much, and they feel that's their role. Provide the best life for me and all the children they're caring for, and that just wastes them. They come, just sit with the TV. And what I did was to try to connect with them where they're at. They come, sit with TV, I'll sit down. It was uncomfortable. Everybody in the house maybe didn't feel like sitting with them, but I'll go force myself and sit down and not talk. I'm gonna sit in the TV room with them. Just stay there 1 hour, 2 hours. All right, good night. And the next thing, find little ways to connect. They grew up different. They grew up in a different generation. Maybe
Yeah.
they didn't get that from their father. So coming and blaming them might not be the best way. It might be just to meet them where they're at with little glimpses, finding things that connect, find a way to draw them out, to bring out the emotional side. That might make it possible for them to connect more on an emotional level. But we just don't want to start with blaming and accusing. That would just that might not
Can
work.
can I ask a question to my lovely
Of
panel
course.
tonight? Because I'm thinking about, like, okay, I know that there's pressures to um have all the wisdom. Like, like, I'm the dad, maybe I need to carry particular things. And I know that there's different ways that we communicate, right? So I know that even just kids just watch us. They watch what we're doing, and that is a way of communicating, and it's a form of telling, which I know that especially storytelling is so important, in our many of our cultures. So what role do you think, men play in terms of how they pass on this information? Like, what does that look like when we talk about what my father never told me? How did they tell us? What were the
Mm.
like? What did that actually even look like?
Mm.
I
I
don't know.
think
Just a thought.
no, I think in general, men are trained to be more so people of action and example. So I need to provide, I'm going to go grind and do what I got to do. Or you look at how they interact with your mom, you look at how they are in the home. As you said, we're very observant of a lot of those things. But as men, generally, we're not as verbal as we would like to be, or as vulnerable as we would like to be. And I think that is one of the things, for example, my dad's soft guy, he will open up, he will talk.
Mm,
But in terms of that vulnerability of like, why didn't you tell me this? Or how to approach things like that, I don't think he was taught to verbalize at that layer. Like he'll tell you stories,
mm,
great storyteller of growing up and things they got into and friends and growing up with brothers and getting on wild and but things like why didn't you tell me to have a circle of men, like-minded men? Is it
mm,
okay for me to be vulnerable at this level? I think
mm,
certain fathers don't want their kids to see them vulnerable. They want them to. I think that's something within them. They want to be seen as the Superman because that's what it
mm.
means to be a man, right? So, I mean, I know I didn't answer the question directly.
No,
It's
you
just me
did.
kind
It's a
of
hard question.
Yeah,
It's
you did.
complex.
I,
There's so many layers.
spitballing.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering. This is a thought as you were talking, Matt. I was wondering, like, if we can say or agree or even just process, like, I think it would be great for more of that
Yeah.
verbal, for our fathers to share more. We're hearing things like, even the conversation, the things our father never told us. It's obviously, if we look at the other side of that, it's kind of maybe a plea or desire for fathers to actually share more, to be more vulnerable, to
Mm.
Yeah.
to share those stories, right? So if we could agree, like, it would be sweet to see fathers do that, but without the pressure of having to do it like perfectly, right? And
Yeah.
this is where the concept of,
Mm,
like, it takes a village, right? I think
Mm,
in stories I've heard in other cultures where the village raises the kid, right? Like, there's,
yeah.
yes, your dad has this rule and stuff, but then you have uncle over here and uncle over here and uncle over here, and whether they're your actual uncle or not,
And
and
they're all
there's
responsible.
right, right. And there's a
Mm,
responsibility, and they impart and they share. And so that's not putting it all on your dad's shoulders, but it would still be nice for your dad to impart and to share, being your actual, flesh and blood dad. So I'm wondering if, like, one thing that I would love to see is if um dads would be able to speak up more, to share more, recognizing that this is what their children, are wanting. Maybe they're not able to know that's what they want until adulthood and when they realize they didn't get that. But for
yeah.
fathers to speak up and share more, but then also to welcome those other, Uncle Phil on TV as an
Mhm.
example, or
Yeah.
a teacher, or whatever, a family friend or an uncle, like, to welcome that, to take the burden off your dad to be truly Superman, and to kind of share the role. So fathers to step up a bit more, but also to share the role with other people around us. Does that make sense? Like, I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I,
Yeah.
I would have loved to, in hindsight, I would have loved for
Yeah.
that to have been, and hopefully that's what I can do for my children. But any thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
As you were speaking, Josh, it just reminded me of a client that I did have who was talking about like an emotional issue that they're having with their dad, of like their dad was present but a little bit absent. They didn't really feel like they got the
Mm,
emotional stability that they really wanted from their father. So we had a conversation of encouraging him to have that conversation with his father. And his father was able to finally kind of expound on what he was
mm,
doing and what his mindset was. And he's like, well, his father just completely left the house. So for him, in his mind, the win was, I'm here and I'm still doing this, even though it's difficult, and I'm still providing, and I'm still,
wow.
like, so he was dealing with his father's wound, So he thought like he was doing a lot better because, hey, I stayed. And then he didn't really understand that even though you stayed, there was still an emotional aspect that I still wanted from, like, you still need to provide. So by having that conversation, their relationship grew so much closer because it was that miscommunication in a sense. So I feel like that those kind of conversations, us having those things, can really help us see kind of where people are coming from, what's going on, what is the mindset in terms of why they're having certain reactions or certain behaviors. And it really helps to enclose certain things. And because we usually assume the worst anytime that we don't
Right.
feel like an emotional need is being fulfilled. But sometimes actually hearing it, it's not the worst, can really help to build that bond.
And it's a perfect balance between actual grace and accountability, and
Yeah.
actually having that conversation, hearing it from your father, actually hearing, you know, his vulnerabilities, his insecurities, the burdens he was bearing, and you kind of talk through it together. That's powerful, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Well,
kids pick up a lot, just like you shared. Kids pick up by observing. I know for me, like I said, when my dad was not in the picture, I went to my grandfather. And at the stage of his life, I was reading about Erickson's stages of psychosocial development. At each stage, what he does is storytelling, just telling, and he will tell me story. But from each of those stories, I pick a lot of lessons I
mm,
never received from my dad. I never knew how my dad met my mom. I never knew his ideas on relationship.
oh
But
wow.
for my grandfather, I could get all those from all the stories. And I remember my grandma would say, "Keep quiet. You've told that boy that 20 times." I said, "Grandma, no way. Let him say it again." I like to
Yes.
see something new. And I know when I also moved to Canada, I have my uncle who really took me in, introduced me to all his friends. And throughout the summer months, in the summer, almost every weekend, he would hang out with his friends. And I would go sit with these men, just sit in the midst and just hear their conversations. I picked up so much from their conversations, investing, marriage, leading a home. I didn't even have to ask any question. Just be there. Oh, you need a drink? I'll get you a drink. That was my ticket to being that. Don't start up. I'll go get you next drink. But I
the
listened
price
to
of admission. All right.
Yes.
pick up a lot for years just hanging around this man. So
Oh, I
people
love that.
pick up a lot from just so there are places where men do talk, where they feel free and they want to meet them at those places and just take all the nuggets we can get. Yeah.
But
Mm.
the hunger that you talk about, there is that hunger for that storytelling. Like
Yes.
you're like, I want to hear the gem. No, grandma, no. I'm picking up something. There's something that he's trying to tell me, low key, and I think that there is this hunger as we talk about that legacy passing from generation to generation to learn something, to glean that. And I think that you guys touched on that earlier, right? It's just
Yeah.
like when that child is being thrown up in the air and there's just something that they're wanting to glean from their dads. And I think that storytelling is definitely one of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
what I gather is like with or what I envision with fatherhood, there's a that stoic, like the stoicism behind it, and then it's like that where that kind of pulls away from that emotional connection, and
Mm,
you're just in awe. I'm like, okay, say the right things, do the right things,
yeah.
and that is where some of the disconnection comes in. But when we were talking about the sense of community, like an uncle, like all that, it's father adjacent, maybe like
Yes.
Mhm.
maybe the idea like behind father is like the direct line, and
Mhm.
then whether it's the elders like grandfather, uncle, or
Mm,
brother, like that's where the rest kind of gets fit in. So I mean,
mm,
Mhm.
I think we've pedestalized father and we don't see it as you know they're perfectly flawed just the same way, but
Yeah.
mm, mm,
we put a lot of importance there and maybe haven't kind of circled around to what builds it, like his sense of community as well. Like we were
Yeah.
talking about, like Matt had
mm,
mentioned about like it's like, dad, like did you have like a brotherhood? Like you didn't tell me about the importance of that. I'm like, but
Yeah.
you didn't it's almost like I've noticed that there's I won't say even my own father, I feel like I can sit in the room with him and we're having a conversation, like just by sitting in the same room as him.
Mhm.
And then it's
Yeah.
like I pick up on those things, or even like an uncle, and it, I don't know. The observation part is definitely something. I'll bring up another point. I'm this is the first time I'm saying this out loud. Very jealous of my nephew. he is only 2 and he seems to have this connection with my dad that I'm like, I never
Oh.
had that. Like, I'm like,
Mm.
you kidding me? Um, but I've been the one that has been observing them, and I'm like, this kid. All right.
You're like, how
Is he
dare
trying
you?
to steal my father? Like, oh, like I get a little territorial with him.
You get like
But
Anakin Skywalker a little bit now.
yeah, but it allows me to kind of step back and, maybe be that little, like, that childlike,
Mm.
in childlike stage, and kind of observe. I'm like, well, what is it that I figured that I missed that is happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
And it I guess as you
Mm.
transition through life, those are the things that you kind of pick up. I'm like, you know what, maybe I missed out on that, and that's okay. It's just being instilled in the next generation, or it I guess it's like it's still working towards my good. Like, you can see the strengths that I can still see the strengths that I have, the weaknesses that I have, and it kind of comes to light when I'm observing these
Yeah.
things. So I think
Wow.
it's like a full circle moment.
That's
Yeah.
powerful,
I,
guys.
I, I like the sense of observation, and what it really fits into this whole conversation is I'm noticing that there's different elements of how our fathers can speak to us, whether it is through that observation, the
Mhm.
presence, whether it is through like imparting wisdom, whether it is through storytelling. That's amazing. And the one piece that seems important here, I'm reminded through Andrew's words of like, um, in whatever way is communicated, I think we can open communication more, so not just observing, but
Mhm.
also through the storytelling. But one of the things that seems important is to limit that sense of miscommunication, right? If
Yes.
I'm a child here and I'm observing in this storytelling, but I'm getting this sense of like, wait, like, my love's not, I have to earn my dad's love, because here's what I'm thinking. And my dad, maybe he's not portraying that, but it's just what's coming through his stories and just being in his presence. And
You fill your
and
own narrative in your mind,
right,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if we can limit those ways of miscommunication, and I think
Mm.
as fathers maybe listening to this, or newer fathers, or fathers that are expecting, right, to really be okay with like opening up that sense of communication in different ways. Even what's true to you, if you're that storyteller, that funny, that joke teller, that's great. But opening that up a bit more, or just being mindful of like, how do I communicate maybe in a diverse way that kind of really does get the point across, or the story across, the lesson across, or really takes away that sense of miscommunication. Because there's probably a lot of people that thought, man, my dad just doesn't love me or didn't want to be there. And then
Mhm.
the dad's sitting here like, hey, like, I tried, my best to work 40 plus hours a week, and put food on the table and do all these things, and really show my love that way. And this whole time the child's thinking,
There's a
my dad
disconnect
doesn't care
there.
about me, he's not
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
think getting rid of that miscommunication, or where the communication falls flat, how do we bridge that? I think that's super important.
And I think too, both of you bring up good points too, Josh and Gavin. I think when you really observe the different phases we go through in life, obviously men and women, but you're a baby, you're a boy, teenager, you become a man, you become a father. A testament to your dad, Gab. You see how he is, right, with the
Mhm.
new generation, but it's like, man, to a certain degree, he's probably like, I have fought the battle and now I'm
Mhm.
retired. Now I have a moment to be present. And
Mhm.
I think the battle is finding key moments to be present, regardless of how busy you are, to actually have that communication, be present with your child. And when you're present, almost like they're all that you see.
Mhm.
I know the sidebar, but like, parents nowadays are glued to this when they're
Mhm.
present with their child. So, not just our parents, but it's happening now where we're not present. And so we're going to continue that, and the kids are going to continue that, and so on and so on. So I think it's finding ways to be present when you're in the midst of the battle of life,
Mhm.
rather than
Yeah.
being retired and witnessing, like, my parent really softened up. It's like, no, they had a moment to actually calm down. They're now retired. They don't need to stress. They don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. My dad's so active at 73. I'm like, Dad, where do you have to go? He's like, I have a schedule. I'm like, Dad, you're retired, bro. What's going on? But yeah, it just made me think of that. So yeah,
Mm.
That's good.
From all our conversation, we're learning that the role of a father is really important.
yeah,
Fathers do important work. They pass on messages, and these lessons are generational. And the question I kind of want to leave us with tonight is, you, every one of us, you are now a father figure in someone's life, whether a
mm,
child, whether a
Mm.
younger sibling, whether a mentee. And I'm wondering, what lessons are you making sure doesn't stop with you? What lessons are you making sure that you pass along? Because you are the custodian. Your like just said, your voice carries a lot of weight. So I want
yeah,
to make sure that we are passing this message and we are doing things right
Yeah.
for the next
Mm.
generation.
Yeah. I
Mm.
know something cool within this is some of the work that I do with clients that I see so powerful is, and on one hand it's unfortunate, but on the other hand it's so powerful is that when you get those people that don't have those redeemable qualities, right? Or they're, like
Mm,
you said, they're, their dad is gone and there's still unresolved things, and or their
mm,
dad was honestly just terrible, like, and we talked about it, that abusive thing. One of the things I'm seeing is I do like inner child work, and seeing the men heal to the
Mm.
point where they are now that father figure to their inner child. They are that
mm,
safe, vulnerable, loving, compassionate to themselves, right? And as we're working through that, they'll be like, "I wish it didn't have to be this way. I wish I had,
Mm.
an earthly father who was able to do this for me, so I'm not dealing through all this trauma, and I got to be strong for myself." But to see them step into that is super beautiful, and so I think, yeah, not only sharing those kind of father-like qualities right now to a young mentee or a a nephew or whoever, but even to yourself internally, I think it's super powerful to see in that inner child work as well. Oh man, when they catch it, when they're like, I've had clients, man, where like their father lives were, it was just, yeah, it was horrible, and then to see
Mm.
them
mm,
heal within themselves and to like step into that father, it redeems trauma held in their body, and it redeems
Mm.
these difficult memories and this feeling of hopelessness and loneliness. And I just think the role of the father is amazing, even providing it for ourselves. I think it's
mm.
amazing.
Amazing. It's amazing. There's two things I want to say, guys. One is, sometimes we think that, you know, it's about the elaborate speeches that, people are looking for. But even just saying, I'm proud of you,
Yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
And
like,
those men, we don't really hear that often. I think
Yeah.
in general.
right? Like, that will shift a whole
Yeah,
generation.
yeah,
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be elaborate. I think that sometimes there's this pressure to, it has to be grand, but even in the small things, that there's grandness in that, there's power in that,
yeah,
It's like
right?
Goodwill Hunting, man, where all Robin Williams says to Matt Damon is, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." This man
Yes,
mm,
just
Yeah.
starts
yes,
crying
Yeah.
and embraces them, right?
Breaks
Like
that
it's
off.
yeah,
it can
Mhm.
be
yes.
the simple words that maybe we just hadn't heard and are
Yeah.
longing to hear.
And as long as it's authentic, as long as it's real, that's enough.
Mhm.
yeah. So true.
That's enough. And number two, my last thing, yeah, that's it. Number two. No, okay, no, there's two more things. Two more things. One is that I saw Andrew for number two in the chat saying that he got me my cheese from Barbados. Hallelujah. So I'm very happy about that. And then number three, you guys are talking about the power of community and brotherhood. And then I was like, wait, I remember the days where I saw the men playing dominoes and I saw tables flipping. And I said,
Yes.
one more. Come on, you want love? And I think there was a brotherhood in that for all the dominoes players across the diaspora listening tonight. big up yourself. I know that was
Listen,
no,
there's nothing like playing dominoes with your uncles. It is just madness. And they're
what
masters.
you think I bread?
Oh.
Alrighty
If
now.
you guys could leave one last gem for those listening tonight, what would you say?
Mm.
Mm.
I think what Conley was saying was like, I think there's vulnerability. I think there's strength in vulnerability. So whether that's the child talking to the father talking to the child, I think that there's a lot of strength in being vulnerable about how you're feeling and opening up those portals to have that conversation. I know
Yeah.
personally for me, when I was having this miscommunication with my dad, I was like, I don't know if a conversation would be the best thing. So I wrote him a letter. It took him
Mm.
a while to write a letter back. And at that time, I was confused of like, what's why I'm seeing this guy? He's not writing me a letter, but it took him a while to actually pen his thoughts. And when he did write a letter, it was impactful. And that's what kind of started the relationship that we have now
Mm.
today. So trying to figure out what's best for that relationship, whether the father or the child, and like how would they best communicate. If they're not the most vocal, maybe catching them and having a conversation would be difficult because maybe they have to process something. So maybe it is a letter, maybe it is an email, maybe it's something else, but having that conversation, I think there's strength in that vulnerability.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think just echoing that, I'm the word coming to my mind is just cross communication,
Mhm.
Yeah.
from father to son, from son to father, right? Teaching that young, what does that look like, right? Hopefully, when I'm a father, I can open up that sense of conversation. I know
Yeah.
fathers right now, I'm thinking of one guy in particular, is very communicative with his son, right? Very open and vulnerable and okay to talk about emotions, and also welcomes the child coming to him, right? And that's going
Mm.
to build this sense of, because the one someone said it, I think it was you, Matthew, where it said like, oftentimes we can just end up filling in blanks and writing the narrative,
Yeah.
and I think cross communication that has that sense of openness that limits miscommunication. Um, Father knows he's appreciated, son knows he's loved, and it's open, it's vulnerable, it's verbalized, it's observable. I think that's great. So yeah, cross communication.
And I think, from my perspective, it's trying to meet your dads with where they're at. One, and two, if you have that connection with them already and you want to go deeper, I think you should open up that door in a means that's comfortable. Like Kanye mentioned, just being present. If you feel like they don't talk, just go chill out with them in the TV room. Go, hang out in the presence together and open that door. Start verbalizing. Start saying, what were you like when you were a man? When you were my age, what were some of the things you faced? We don't know that. I don't know that about my dad. What did you face? Well, what were you thinking? What were some of the conflicts in your mind? And I think asking it from their perspective and saying, I've kind of felt these things as well. I think you will find that there's a lot of common ground and things that you might have created in your head. Most of the time, it's not true because you're filling in a blank. So, yeah, take the risk to communicate. Yeah.
Something I would leave with our listeners tonight is what I heard Josh talking about the inner childhood. You've been able to heal to the point where you can now father yourself. And regarding that, I would like to ask, what's one thing you wish your father had said to you that you never heard?
Mm,
And how can you do work to heal that part of you and you can comfort yourself in the way that you need that you did not receive so you
mhm,
don't feel like you're doomed for life. There are
Mm.
mm,
ways to repair, there are ways to compensate, and there are ways to
Powerful.
heal. So you're not damaged.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I will echo the same thing along the lines that I want to speak to the fatherless and or those that felt their father weren't present.
Yeah.
It's and coming from someone who had and grew up with a father, it just I would say seek that community because you can fabricate what that experience should have been for you, but then just seek out that community, whether it is an uncle, whether it is a mentor. Like you can find that.
Mhm.
And then if that's the ideal that you have in your head, then look for it. I mean, like, because it's there, and it will be validating as well. Like, and I think that's, I'm like, your mind is powerful, so
Mm.
it's more of, if you are speaking to it, it will find you. I'm like, I'm looking for a father figure. I'm like, all right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And to all the fathers out there and the father like figures out there, for those who are mentors to, you know, those around them and carry that father role in their communities, happy Father's
Father's Day.
Day this month.
Yes.
All right. So, you know, make yourself a nice big glass of Mobby if you like that thing, or if you like some peanut punch,
Ooh, yes.
whatever you like. Make sure you get a nice big glass and big up yourself this month. Father's Day, Men's Mental Health Month.
Yes.
Yes. So before we close out tonight's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our incredible Baba Shop Tuesday panel. You did it again! Kunle, Andrew, Josh, Matt, and Gavin, and Andrew number 2. Bring us back our cheese. Yeah. So thank you so much for your honesty, your vulnerability, your wisdom, your stories, and your willingness to engage in a conversation that so many men and families needed to hear tonight. Tonight, we explored the lessons that were passed down, the conversations that never happened, and the ways that many men are working to redefine what strength, emotional well being, and legacy can look like for future generations. To our listeners, thank you for spending your evening with us, for sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and for being part of this important conversation. As we continue exploring the stories that shape our lives, join us next Tuesday for another thought provoking episode of The Insight Hour. Next week, the title is Unmasking Fear, the stories we tell ourselves. I'll be joined by the incredible and hilarious Natasha Halliday, registered social worker and psychotherapist, for a meaningful conversation about the ways fear can quietly shape our choices, identities, relationships, and sense of possibility. Fear often speaks through stories about who we are, what we're capable of, what could go wrong, and whether we're safe enough to move forward. Together, we'll explore how fear is often protective rather than pathological, how our experiences shape the narratives we carry, and how we can begin separating ourselves from the stories fear tells us. We'll discuss how fear develops and why it exists, the differences between protection and limitation, the stories fear creates about our identity and self worth, how culture, trauma, and life experiences shape our fears, and how we can begin rewriting narratives that no longer serve us. If fear has been narrating your decisions lately, this conversation will offer an opportunity to listen differently and perhaps begin rewriting the script. So join us, same time, same place, next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music and Talk Radio. Until next time, remember your mental health matters, your story matters, and healing is possible. This has been the Mental Health Hour. I'm your host, Felicia Fishoff. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Good night and peace out.